I clicked the wrong thing. Jacob, do me a favor. So there's not dead air. Would you explain to everybody what happened with you the last time you were on and what Donna Heitmanick did for you? I just love this story.
Yeah, so I assume everybody knows who Donna is, right? She seems to be a local celebrity. She's the one who started the What I Should Have Learned in College group. So our first meeting on here, or after our first happy hour meeting, I mean, Donna reached out to me and said, hey, you know, I enjoyed some of the ideas you brought up and stuff. And since I'm a college student who's student teaching, Donna wanted me to kind of like start a branch off group, I guess you call it that, for pre-service teachers. And it's, you know, we would obviously have a strong emphasis on the science of reading, but then other topics would be welcome too that are, you know, that college students talk about in a teacher preparation program. So she helped me start this kind of like the What I Should Have Learned in College. It's called Pre-Service Teachers, What I Should Be Learning in College. And college students can go on there who are in a teacher preparation program and talk about, so I'm taking this literacy class and this is what they're teaching me, you know, is this balanced literacy? You know, what's the best practice? And although it's been brought up a few times that most college students are not really on Facebook, so I'm thinking of maybe starting a similar group on Reddit, still keeping the Facebook group, of course, but also having it on a social media platform that's more popular with people. But yeah, Donna helped me make it. She gave me a whole bunch of advice, and she also helped promote it on the What I Should Have Learned in College group as well. So yeah.
Yeah, she's truly amazing. She helped me get this up and off the ground, and it's I texted with her before, and she always has like give me hosting functionality, and I was like, oh, are you popping in? She's like, I don't know, I haven't had dinner. I'm like, oh, for the love of God, could you please just have one night that doesn't involve literacy and just go enjoy yourself? So anyway, so this episode 5, as we know, it had a lot to do with the name of the episode was called The Company. And it was, you know, essentially about how the company is, you know, the foundation is sand, and it's certainly not based on any research. And what I always try to do is I try to go through the transcript and find the quote or quotes, many quotes that sort of speak to me. And this was one of my favorites. When asked about their research that provides kids with the conditions that we know all readers need, above all, the reading workshop recites kids with the attempt to read. So here's what I say to that. Okay, that's right. Here's what I say to that. Fantastic, as we all know, if you know how to read, fantastic. I just had a conversation with a colleague of mine, and the favorite thing that people who are still white knuckling balanced literacy come back to is, the book nooks. It's like, okay, if you can't read, it's just a nook, and the book is irrelevant. And then, so now to get into the actual research, this was the quote that I thought could frame our thoughts and conversation for tonight. So take a sec with that. So I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think for the most part, we are educators on here tonight. I sort of feel like I'm getting familiar with everybody. And one of my personal biggest issues with, just like with reading recovery, yep, Jen, one of my bigger issues has always been with the level reading books and the assessing them that way. And I know that you can, any of you who have ever given a DRA can attest to this. You know, I'd be giving my kids like family soccer and just be like, it's a shoulder, see the shoulder, the ball's going to hit the shoulder. Please say shoulder. The kid can't read shoulder, but they'd say shoulder. And I'm like, yes. And my data looked fantastic. And it went up to central office. And like, who was better than me? You know, my kid just read an F. Well, no, they just, you know, saw the shoulder. But I took credit. I took credit for the reading levels. And even though I knew they were not reading. In any event, sorry, so Matt Byrne, as I mentioned, is the researcher. And I don't know if you remember, I feel like I'm doing a lot of talking tonight. Somebody please just jump on and say anything to make me stop whenever you feel the need. But fascinating to me that thus far it is the only research that's been done, and that's a meta-analysis. And anything that, you know, TC said, there was just, you know, nobody was returning her phone calls. But actually, you know what I'll do? I'll do this. So Matt Byrne did a really comprehensive peer-reviewed scientific study on balanced, on level readers specifically. And I've just put it in the chat for when you have a free second and the only thing you want to do is read research on balanced literacy, on level literacy. But in any event, he, and all the research that he did, essentially what he found was that flipping a coin is the equivalent to giving a child a leveled reading assessment to find out where they are. And something else that I'm going to share with you is a really great webinar that I found on why not to use level readers, not just for assessment, but with guided reading. And I'm going to put that in there too. Again, when you have nothing else to do. But essentially this, so as we know, essentially a level reader is we assign a level to a child and then we take all those children that are in the same level. So basically it's all the kids that guessed at the same pictures successfully. And we use more level readers to continue to not teach them words, but, you know, focus on guessing and what is in the reader. And that's what the first slide is. So what if instead of every kid reading at their level, which my husband and I had a conversation about leveling a while ago, and he is not in education. And he was like, yeah, but you have to know their level. Like, if you don't know their level, how do you know where they're reading? And I was like, there's no such thing. They made it up. There's no levels. He's like, there has to be levels. And I'm like, this is why it's so successful, because it just makes so much sense. Like, there has to be a level. Well, it's no such thing. It is just made up. There is, however, there is certainly reading abilities and reading strengths and reading needs. And that's what, so as opposed to leveling, that's what we have to focus on. In any event, I am talking a lot tonight. Somebody stop me. So can someone else besides me tell us what the Matthew effect is? And I just put my teacher hat on. Anyone at all? Mona, you know I'm going to go to you every time, girl.
Yeah, so the Matthew effect really refers to the Bible, and really what it is talking about is, especially in that drop everything and read time that we know doesn't work, is that those kids who can read will practice reading and get better at that, and they tend to do great. And our poor readers fall further and further and further behind. And there's so much data that none of that works. And it really doesn't really work for those top students either, because they're not reading texts that are authentic enough, that are giving them that broad knowledge or the vocabulary that they need. And they're not getting the support. And we find our lowest students who are sitting there either looking at pictures, falling asleep, playing with the bus bunnies on the floor, it's really not benefiting anybody. We really need to have teachers do that differentiation in small group with the text that the students need for the level that they're at. So that's the Matthew effect. We see it all the time in schools.
The rich get richer,
Right.
essentially. So the first question to toss out is the questions that is on the screen. Do you see the Matthew effect now in your school, and how so? And just jump on in, no need for a hand raise tonight. There's,
So last semester, so the way my university does things is I'm student teaching this semester, but the semester before that, you do like a half day student teaching, and it has to be at a different school, different grade level. So I'm in first grade right now. Last semester, I was in a fifth grade classroom, and I could see that so profoundly. We had a student in the class who who literally read through dictionaries for fun. And she had all this vocabulary, and she would just read all the time. And she was one of the highest children in the class, and she just loved it. And she was that student where all the other students knew that if they didn't know an answer, they just kind of look at her and say, okay, when is she gonna raise her hand and give us all the answer? And then we had other students, one who I actually did a case study on for an assignment, which is another thing I wanted to talk about too. She didn't like to read as much, and she was one of the lowest ones in the class, and she was a great kid. And whenever she always did whatever she was asked to do, she was a great student, but just in her own spare time, she didn't really like to read that much, and she wasn't nearly as good at it. And this is not quite the same thing as the Matthew effect, but I wanted to talk about the leveling for a second, because for my case study, I had to do, one of my assignments was to do running records with her, and she was in fifth grade. So I think I did a level U book, and she made a lot of errors, but a very large chunk of them were she inserted or deleted suffixes at the end of the word. So like if there's an F plural or something like that, or if the word was singular, she might make it plural, but I had to count those as errors. And so she had all these errors coming up that made it seem like that book was barely at her instructional level, if not too difficult for her. But that could have happened with that could have happened with the book 10 levels easier. And she still could have made those exact same errors and gotten the same exact data. So that's just kind of an anecdotal note that I took that just really shows. I mean, obviously we needed this big research that Matthew Byrne did, but my personal anecdotal note right there is just, I feel like very consistent with that. And I brought that up to my professor who I was taking the literacy class with at the time. I said, these errors that she's making, this could happen with any book. And my professor was kind of like, yeah, it could. That's kind of I don't remember what her response was, but it was basically like, well, that's how it is. So.
hold on, I feel like I should play the thing again, like, that actually, Matthew, that's a great point. It was brought up in the podcast. You could take that child, and we all know this, and try a different book on the, with the same U, and they could pass it tomorrow. So that, again, is further proof that it is not actually a level, that it doesn't exist. I could, on any given day, I can have, thanks, Nicole, you might already be gone. On any given day, you could test a kid on 3 separate levels, and they could, it's just a lucky day if they pass it or not, or what pictures they look at. They could pass a C, and then a D, and then an F, and then the next day not pass an F. It's nonsense, bananas. Anybody else want to address how you see, or if you see the Matthew effect in your own school?
One way is that students kind of get segregated. Like some kids go into special ed and RTI, the gifted program, and they get spread out, and that's kind of frustrating, because especially if you're one of the kids in the lower levels, and I don't see a lot of opportunities for them to meet. And I saw your other slide about supporting children so they can all read like grade level texts. Yeah, that one. And that would be so much more empowering for students who feel like they can't read, can't in quotes, like if you use audiobooks or whatever techniques to help students access that same grade level literature, because also then they miss not only the emotional satisfaction of being able to read what everyone else is reading, they lose a lot of access to the culture when they're just reading like the Magic Tree House when everyone else is reading Bridge to Terabitha.
Right.
So yeah, the segregation gets frustrating.
I read a quote today, Susanna, that is so spot on with your thinking from my own. I read a quote today that Anita Archer said that using leveling books is the equivalent of elementary school tracking. And it's so hard for these kids that are in the lower levels. You know, do they really ever, again, leveling up is not the same thing as reading, but do they ever actually level up, or are they just always that lower level?
And they start to feel like I'm a reading interventionist, and they start to feel like lower level people, which is the worst part of it. The great part is when they learn to read and they realize they're not.
Right. Right. That's another quote. I have to tell you, Edu Twitter has transformed so much of my thinking, and it has really advanced everything that I know. And I quote memes all the time now. Jacob, is that like a mom thing too? Go ahead, say it. Say it.
You can't say it.
I don't know. I'm thinking about my own mom and not placing with her, but then when I think of others, yeah. So I still had to think carefully.
All right. Well, one of the memes that I saw, it said, you know, the kids who are guessing, they know they're not reading. They genuinely know that they're not reading. Another something else that I'd like to throw out if somebody wants to address is leveled readers and comprehension and content. How do we address content and comprehension if we're using leveling readers? Jump in, anybody.
Well, I think that's one of the huge pieces, and I think you're going to see a huge shift in this coming in the next few years. We're really looking at that knowledge gap that our students have, and it is a large problem. It's not only just with vocabulary, but it's their global knowledge of everything. And I'm in schools, like next week, I'm going to be in Ohio for a couple of days in a couple of different districts. And really what I see a lot of times, and there are great teachers out there, our teachers today are so under stress. They have more kids in the classroom than they should have. The kids that have gone through COVID really have missed about 2 years of education. They've missed those foundational pieces. And now it's up to the third or second grade teacher to pack all that in there in almost less time. And I think sometimes they get the idea that those kids are going out for intervention. They're going to be fixed by someone else. Our theory at Wilson is that we are here for all children. We have to start talking about MTSS and what that looks for all of our children in that classroom. And I don't think our colleges and university, Jacob, you've spoken about this, we really don't talk about how those teachers can really support and differentiate in that classroom. When you've got 28 widgets, all reading at a different level with behavior problems, with so many problems, and you are the only teacher in there, and it's chaotic. And so it's not just reading. We have a lot of things that we need to start to look at. But certainly if we were teaching the science of reading and holding everybody's feet to the fire, especially principals and administrators and curriculum directors, I think we would see a huge difference in our children. both mentally and academically.
Yeah, one of the one of the teachers that I work with, she teaches kindergarten, and she came in and all 20 of her kids are at end of year kindergarten for CVC words. And you know, she was, as she should be, she was so proud of herself and proud of the kids. And I looked at her, I was like, oh, so you taught them to read. Like, and you know, there's someone in my district that keeps referring to it as messy. I'm like, it's just not messy. It's a letter, it's a sound
It's a graphing.
together, and then we do the next one. Like, it
Yep.
is the least messy, not messy thing we do as educators is science of reading. I said before that it was Anita Archer. I just, you know, I act as if, you know, I'm like this big global superstar. It was Nat Wexler. I want to make sure I gave the credit, who said that leveled reading is like elementary tracking. There's a comment. Thank you, Mona. You are spot on. Thank you, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, turn your mic on and say that to her if you want.
I think it's really important to stress ear reading. That's one way we can bridge that gap in knowledge. So while you're getting that intervention to that student, allowing them to ear read at their cognitive level and maintain the level with their class is really important.
Cheryl, by ear reading, do you mean
Listening to books on, like looking at, you can Bookshare is a great option, you know, for some kids. Learning Ally. I have 3 kids with dyslexia, but they've been very successful because of outside intervention and in doing just that. Understanding that if we leave them at their decoding level, if we're taking all of their instruction and lowering it to the decoding level, we're going to create more of a Matthew effect.
Absolutely. And I think you have to look at, you have to understand expressive and receptive language. And so receptive language, what you take in, what you hear and read, will be lower than, no, more advanced than what you can
Yes.
express. And so, but you have to hear that language, and it all is that orthographic mapping that goes with being able to know everything about that word, being able to define that word, use it correctly and appropriately, and be able to spell that word. And so you are so correct. And so I think if you're working with parents and they're like, what can we do? What can we do? The best thing you can tell them to do is read books 2 years above their level. They should be 2 years above, so they're hearing the syntax and semantics of our language and hearing that really enriched vocabulary.
Oh, Mona, I just love all that you're saying. And to what you were saying earlier, what I agreed with was there's so many layers and components to what our classroom teachers are dealing with. I've been an instructional coach the past couple of years, and so it's the discipline problems also. I mean, all that these children are coming into our classrooms with, you know, and so it's a lot. You know, it's just a lot going on.
It's a lot. And poor teachers, no wonder we're losing them in droves. I'm so thankful when I see somebody like Jacob coming in to be teachers, because we need our students rescued, and it's going to be the young people. Those of us, I mean, I am well into the decades, probably more than most of you. You know, we need to retire at some point, and yet there's nobody to fill our shoes. So.
Yeah.
And then if you look at teachers coming in, look what Oklahoma is doing. Oklahoma is taking anybody who has had a successful graduation rate from a high school, you get to be a teacher. That's frightening.
Well, and we'll also see how long that lasts, right? Elizabeth, do you mind if I ask, you said you're an instructional coach. What is your literacy program now?
So I'm in North Carolina, and we are so thrilled that legislation, we're all doing letters, which is great.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Every teacher?
K3, yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
the
So
2-year or the,
2-year, yeah.
Nice.
And you know, as we all know, it's been quite a lift on the teachers. It's been a lot to do all that they're doing, but in the end, but right now I've been thinking a lot about the implementation science, okay, so we're learning all this, our system in Winston-Salem was the first cohort, but how to implement, okay, they're learning all this, but let's do
So
something.
in North Carolina, are you familiar with Professor Dean Fixen, F-I-X-E-N, Dean Fixen? He was at the University of North Carolina. I think he's now on his own doing some research. And he is the person who really talked about the implementation science and what that looks like for our classrooms. Business and other genres have done it for a very long time, and we have not done it in our classroom. And so it really talks about training everybody to the best that you can do their training. New teachers come in. Yep, it's not that you forget about that one new teacher like Jacob coming in, because we all had the new math curriculum last year. No, we still trained Jacob just like we trained everybody else. And then we have to give people support, because the research is, even if you go and hear something, you only bring about 10% of that back to the classroom. Within 6 weeks, you're back to old habits if you don't have that support. And Dean Fixen talks about all the time that it takes 10,000 hours of practice of doing something to be able to really envelop that and make it yours and internalize it. So you are absolutely right, Elizabeth. That really is the next step that we need to talk about it as well.
Well, yeah, thank you, Mona. So if you could put that in the chat, Dean Fixen, is that what you said?
Yep.
I'd love to look into that, because that's where I'm concerned right now. We're so excited about this opportunity we've been given, but then how to support these overwhelmed teachers in implementing this, resources through, all of it. So thank you.
Have you picked a have you picked a program, Elizabeth? A curriculum?
So in my district, we're doing Haggerty,
Mhm.
K2, and Wonders. So some of that is that, well, that's where we are right now.
Yeah. Wonders has doesn't it sort of have a balanced literacy tilt to it a little bit, or no? It does. I thought so.
It's a bit, it's just like Emily says, it has a spattering of, science or reading, and then some other stuff too. So, and it was adopted a couple years ago. So we're trying to work through that. But the Haggerty course has been great. Teachers
Yeah.
are loving that, and we're seeing lots of great results from that.
Haggerty actually just came up with a curriculum themselves that, moves away from just a strictly auditory, and it's a phonics program. Their scope and sequence is quite good. I have my own personal feelings about so much auditory, but with lots of other stuff, it's, effective. And how's teacher buy-in?
As we know, it's been tough with letters. It's just a lot
It is a lot.
with all that they have. So it's that, big picture with how did we say where finally legislation is going to help students, that big picture. So, and with that, I'm kind of concerned about, okay, let's implement. How do you fight?
I just lost your audio for a little bit. Say that again.
My concern is, okay, next step, how to apply the training in the class.
I heard next steps and then I didn't hear
How to apply
how to apply it. Yeah.
the letters and sections to science of reading. How does that work in the class?
Right. Actually, funny that you mentioned it. I am found out today that I'm going to be a presenter at the Unlocking SOR Summit in March. And my proposal and what I'll be doing is exactly that. It's like the day in the life of a structured literacy classroom. And what does that look like with, video of the kids too. So that's what everybody seems to say. It's like, I'm in, I don't know what to do. I don't know where to start and I don't know what it looks like. So hopefully that'll work. Anybody else have anything they're dying to jump on in with? Oh, Diane, I'd love to hear more. If you want. I'm a big fan of Marnie's.
Oops. Sorry. Yeah, I used to teach at a school. Marnie helped me when I knew her before her PhD,
Oh,
and
wow.
she steered me to reading reflex and phonographics. So I taught first grade at a private school using phonographics for 10 years. And then when I stepped back from teaching, I was tutoring, and Marnie had started reading Simplified at the very beginning. And so I've been using, it's similar, but much better with the way that what Marnie has done to improve from reading reflex, her Switch It especially. And I just have to say, I have worked with beginner readers struggling. They've already been identified in K or 1, but you start, especially if they haven't been impacted by the 3 cueing approach in their schools, they make amazing progress over 4 weeks in the summer, just meeting a couple of half hours a week. I taught a little wiggly ADHD little girl all of her sounds before she started to kindergarten. The method of teaching the sounds is just happened so quickly with the Switch It. And I'm working now with 4 beginners. The blessing of it is that they haven't been at school. They've been in homeschool or other situations, but they're just moving along with the Switch It, giving them the phonemic awareness. And, Marnie had Susan Brady on her platform to speak about the difference of Switch It even versus Heggerty, where we really don't need to focus on the syllables and the rhyming and stuff, that we start immediately with the letters in the context of words, switching them around from mop to map, from mast to past to pest. And it is it's amazing to see these kids, just the light bulb goes on, and they know their sounds. In a few weeks they're blending because of Blend as You Read, and we move right into CVCC, CCVC, digraphs, and on to the advanced code presenting. I just presented long O in the last couple of weeks to a couple of these little girls, and they catch on. And Marnie's method in the speech to print, you present the sound O. We start from the sound and move to the print. We started with the sounds and present the spellings of O, all the common ones, O, O-E, O-A, O-W, O consonant E. And in that same lesson, the kids are reading two or three one-page stories with it. They take it home, and the parents are just amazed at how much they can read. So that's what I do as a private tutor, not expecting that I would have so many students, especially since COVID.
Well, you know what else, Diane, too? One of the things that just grinds my gears above all else, there are people who will continue to walk, white knuckle balanced literacy. Not for any reason that benefits a child, but they do. And the only real complaint that I've ever seen raised about science of reading is that it's boring. And it's like, oh my gosh, how much fun are your kids having? Manipulating letters and sounds, it is such a gas. It is so much fun. And it's, it's what I do all day long. And it's just so much darn fun.
It is. And, Marnie, there's Switch It, Sort It, Read It, then the game that we got to present this week of Steal It. And the kids absolutely love it. They love Switch It. This one little girl, the mom is calling me up. Well, can you work with her? Well, I don't know, is an hour too much? And well, I don't want her to be, I had to be tutored as a kid. I don't want her to feel bad, whatever. She absolutely loves it. We're increasing it to 3 times a week. She comes out skipping and so happy with what she's doing. And yeah, I don't know why people say that, because it's not true. It's what they want it to be true for
Right.
some reason, but it is absolutely. When kids sound out, a little kindergartner whose sister really struggles, when she read The Bug is in the Hut, she just laughed and she was so proud of herself that she could read that little book that
I think I read the exact same book I'm doing a Norton Gillingham. I'm getting my practitioner certification, and hand to God, I read the same book yesterday. He looked up to me, he was like, "The Bugs in the Hut." I'm like, "The Bugs in the Hut, the Bugs in the Hut." Yeah. Let's go. Bugs in the Hut. We're moving on.
Well, I love that Diane talked about the Susan Brady's work. That work just came out early 2022, so it's really new research.
Exactly.
The phonemic awareness piece, and most of you probably have gone to a presentation and it used to be shown as a rain umbrella. And on one side of the umbrella, they talked about phonemic awareness, that kindergartners should be able to clap out how many words in a sentence the ball is read. And then they should know that catfish, shellfish are big words with smaller pieces. And we used to think it had to be in that linear before you could get to the other side of the umbrella, which is the blending and the segmentation. And what Susan Brady has shown is that your student does not need to know how many words in a sentence before you start working on exactly what Diana is talking about. And so the biggest piece of phonemic awareness is being able to blend and segment sounds. And so that is decoding and encoding. The other pieces are important. We can get there. We're going to teach them along at the same time, mop, cop, shop, and so on. But we need to get these kids to read. So nice work, Diane.
Oh,
Yep.
thank you. Right, and the Switch It is it's very clearly, it's not Matt Cat Fat Fat.
Excuse me, sorry.
It
guys.
is not onset rhyme, because kids just figure that out right away. But this little girl, she was having to go from lap to clap to clasp to clamp.
Mm.
So you have got to have your ears tuned in. And she's like thinking and moving. And that process, that they say that kids learn better if it's in a sort of test mode, but she was having to work and figure it out herself. And you could just see their little mouths going, they're sounding it out, moving them around, and it is extremely powerful. I just can't emphasize it. You can look on Reading Simplified's website. There's videos on there, oftentimes free materials on her Facebook.
I was
but,
just gonna say that she gives her Switch It out. It's free.
Yeah, right. It is. And
Love our
anyway,
free stuff. We love our free stuff.
it's good. And but I had a friend who took the Switch It and she just started working with a little boy with just Switch It. Like, no, wait, there's a lot more than that. But that's a very powerful tool. But then there's a way that she does with the blending and so forth. But it is that alone. I shared with a kindergarten teacher, and her kids at the end of the year were reading CVC words.
Yeah.
But Marnie has she's a kindergarten teacher in Arizona teaching ESL. Even during Zoom, she had her kindergartner kids reading long vowel words by the end of kindergarten using Reading Simplified. She's magical because she was doing it on Zoom. So, but anyway, I mean, I can't say enough. I wish that in North Carolina, we have this law in place. All teachers are being trained with letters. But even in my own county, I've talked to some of the school board members, and I don't know, they're not really, they're going to buy some curriculum that's out there. It's like HMN or something like that. They're good. And, if teachers, a curriculum is one thing, knowledge is another, but there's so much left over from what they've been doing. It's kind of like you have to like wash it away and start all over, you know? So I don't really have faith that they're going to put me out of a job right away. I would like to be put out of a job and have kids reading, but it's going to take a lot more than that. And I'm
Diane,
thankful.
you
North
know-
Carolina's done a good job, but it's going to take a lot of something to make it really happen in all the schools.
So you know what I'm always curious about your little girl and some of the other students I see every single day. How much of it is dysthesia and how much of it is dyslexia?
Hmm.
Because I had that little girl had exposure in pre-K, and if she had robust science of reading structured in that classroom, would you even be seeing the student? I would say no.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah,
And-
and I you do see one child pick it up quicker than another. I agree.
Right,
And that's kind of auditory. So they're having trouble with switch it and they're having trouble with blending. And I see that with my own little cluster of beginners. There's some that pick it up quicker and some that are still of the you know, they're still sound by sound, but they're beginning to be more fluent. But there's, yeah, sure, there's this spectrum, but I do believe that a child that, like this little girl, the bug in the hut, her sister started with a 3 cueing system and is struggling in 4th grade.
Right.
But I'm hoping to get into the ground level with a kindergartner and get her to not struggle at that point.
Well, in that 4th grader probably needs to be sitting right next to the kindergartner for the same strategy, for the same, instruction that she missed.
Well, and she's had it. I've been working with her for 2 years. And
Oh,
it's
you're working with the
beginning-
older one too. Sorry, I misunderstood
Yes,
that.
right.
Yeah.
It's both of them. And I'm just telling the mom, bring the kindergartner and let's don't wait till she's struggling. Let's, but yeah, the 4th grader is beginning. It's amazing. She's definitely been tested as dyslexic. It's in the family history. But now she picked up a book at the library. She'd been doing graphic novels and she picked up that Wings of Fire series. And she said with the dragons and all that. She said, oh, they didn't have the graphic novel. So I picked up the regular one and she goes, and I can read it.
Oh,
So she's really, she needs help with multi-syllable still and not so much guessing, but she has made tremendous progress. So, and this is reading simplified with a dyslexic kid who had 3 cueing. This like the 3 cueing to give a dyslexic kid that approach. My only strategy is to guess is like the kiss of death for
right.
reading. It really is.
Well, we are teaching the strategies that those kids have been getting by with, and we're teaching it to all readers. It's just, yeah. Thank you so much. Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
I really appreciate it. My friend Lauren, did you have your hand up? Did you want to jump? My girl, it's my girl right there. Oh, for Pete's sake, Lauren, turn your mic on. Nope. Nope. Can't hear you yet, kiddo. Not yet. All right. Did anybody have anything else pressing they wanted to jump in with?
I would just add that I think we are disabling children with the current instruction. If we look at like Torgerson and Hudson, even clear back from 2006, we know that when we teach a child and we bring them up to grade level by 2nd or 3rd grade, they'll remain on par with their peers going forward. But if we delay that intervention, while it's possible to bring them up to grade level in the areas of accuracy and comprehension, their fluency often lags, and that fluency can become a lifelong disability. So while maybe, only a certain percentage of kids are dyslexic, I think we're disabling children.
Cheryl, I couldn't agree more. And then we also need to look at the trauma and psychological effects that we are imposing upon them.
True, very true.
Yeah.
Steve Dykstra does a nice job of explaining that, I feel like.
Yes, he does. That's just what I thought about when I said it, actually. One thing it's always really important for me, with all aspects of literacy, and I just, one of my closest work friends called me tonight, and she only just sold the story, but you know, she knows that there's changes out there and she's all in for doing them, but you know, she called with the guilt of, oh my gosh, like what the hell have I done? And I feel so terrible. And I say, and you've all heard me say this, I say it every single week. Yes, like let's feel the feels, let's lick our wounds, but let's look ahead and what now? So it's almost 8 o'clock. This hour just flies. I'm so much better. I'm just so much smarter every time I leave these meetings, but I'm not sure where everyone is with their own assessments. I was curious what resources you do use to assess, if anybody wanted to jump in, but in the meantime, if you don't already, I'm going to put the Dibbles screener in the chat. So if you're not using it, because some of us, myself included, I have to give my kids a DRA next week. I have to give them a running record. You know, I work for district and it's what they asked me to do. So I will be giving them somehow, some way, but I also give, and you know, with their blessing, I also give screeners. So I put the Dibbles screener in the chat. If you needed any sort of phonemic awareness screener, it's there for you. But anybody want to close us out tonight with any words of wisdom? A song? Does anybody want to sing, bring us out with a song? Mona? No? A song? Maybe? Yes? No? All right. My friends, as always, I cannot thank you enough for, oh, also, sorry. Has anybody not seen this? Because I will put this in the chat. For any of those teachers that are still thinking that maybe Level Books are okay, this video was taken by a mom during COVID. I'm not going to play it here. I'm going to put it in the chat for you. And it shows the absurdity and the guessing of, oh, no, wrong one. Sorry. Let's put the Dibbles back in. That it is literally just guessing. And you can even see just from the, where'd it go? Ugh, I've told you technology hates me, right? I had the YouTube of, oh man. Anyway, sorry. I don't know what happened. I accidentally hit paste. So now my Dibbles is back on the bottom of the screen. Just Google the Purple Reading Challenge. I'll put that in there. I can do that much. But it's a mom reading a leveled reader with her like 5-year-old, and she's like, she can't read purple. And then she went on to cover the words. Rather cover the picture, and all became apparent. The purple. Yeah, that's what I did. Instead of hitting copy, I hit paste. So then I pasted my Dibbles link right over my Purple Reading Challenge link. Anyway, on that ridiculous technology note, which I usually end my meetings with a ridiculous technology note. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you for your insight and your knowledge. Like I said, I'm always better because of it. And keep your eyes peeled because Emily Hanford's going to join us. Oh, and actually Matt Burns got to me, and for some reason he couldn't get in. They kept saying that this was a sales meeting. So unless somebody's trying to sell us something, I don't think so. You guys are very, very, very welcome. And I'll see you soon. I hope. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Virginia. Appreciate
Goodbye,
it.
my friend.
Thanks, Virginia.
Always
Thank
a
you.
pleasure, Jacob. Thanks, guys.
Good
Thank
luck,
you.
Jacob.